Welcome back. All right, so we're going to talk about awards because at this point in the year, we now have 14 teams still alive in their hunt for a Stanley Cup, meaning there's 18 teams that aren't. And so there's a lot of fan bases out there that might be thinking, playoffs are. How about the awards? So we've got some clarity on who are the finalists. I'm actually surprised that they announced these five first and these five second because honestly, I would have thought they would have saved the more controversial or the more talked about, either way you want to look at it, award announcements for last, right? So personally, I would have had the Norris, the Hart, the Vezina, Calder, Lindsey, all as the last five. And the first five would have been the Jack Adams, Lady Byng, Selke, Masterton, and King Clancy. And then there's the Jim Gregory Award that'll be voted on after the second round. There's the Willie O'Ree Award as well. Those announcements come out later in the playoffs. But yeah, I would have saved the big ones for the last ones to be announced. Anyways, that's just me. But it does mean that I'm able to do a video today where we can discuss who's been nominated and discuss who might win each award. These awards here, of course, the nominees will be known next week. Maybe in a week's time I do a video on that. So the Hart Trophy, the big one, right? Your MVP of the league. And I've seen it discussed about maybe the NHL needs to change the wording. So instead of it being the MVP, it should be the best player in the league. Because again, those are two different things. You can have a guy who's most valuable, not necessarily the best player. And I think that those things can be different. So this one, the finalists are Matthews, McDavid, and Shesterkin. I think Matthews has a very good chance at this. That being said, Shesterkin had a fantastic year. The argument was all year that if Shesterkin's not a brick wall, the Rangers wouldn't be in the position that they're in. I'm not saying they wouldn't be a playoff team. They'd still be a playoff team. But they might be more in a wild card spot. Maybe they'd be the second wild card kind of thing, right? So I think Shesterkin's spot on the board, I do think he's got a shot at winning this. But again, it feels like it's Matthews' award to lose. He breaks the 60 goal barrier, and it just feels like it's his award to lose. And yet there's McDavid, who of course was the number one scorer in the league. We watched last night against LA as he kind of takes over. And I will say this, I know that they do the awards based on regular season, and I get that. To me, what happens in the playoffs, I think, tells you a lot that the regular season doesn't. There are players who during the regular season you go MVP and great, and they win the Hart. But if we did that vote after the first round of the playoffs, we might end up with a different name. And that being said, I don't expect that to ever change, and I just throw that out there as a talking point. Now, on the list of guys who don't make it to the final three, who get talked about a lot, Johnny Goudreau had a fantastic year for the Flames. Best year of his career, it's not even close. And Goudreau's run was great. I think the fact that both of his line mates also had 40 goals likely contributed to him not being seen as the MVP, the driving force. And Jonathan Huberto, much the same thing. In Florida, he is, he's set this record for left wingers in a season with assists and all that. He had a great year. But if you're drafting a team right now, and you can pick either Barkov or Goudreau, or not Goudreau, Barkov or Huberto, who are you picking? I'm picking Barkov. And so I think that's part of it. And again, is that fair? Probably not. But I think that might be part of it. The idea that Huberto had a great year, but without him, Florida's still got a really good, deep team. A lot of goal scorers, a lot of point guys. Ridiculous amount of talent in Florida. If Huberto had put up those totals on, say, the New Jersey Devils, he'd be the runaway favorite. Other than the fact that the Devils didn't make it to the playoffs, so then the question becomes one of, should a Hart Trophy be dependent on how the team does on the ice? Because it seems to be, right? That's been a discussion before. I have talked about that on the channel, how if a player like Patrick Kane in previous seasons, if the Hawks aren't in the playoffs, can he really and truly be the Hart winner? And so that's a whole other debate. We don't have to worry about that this year because Toronto, Edmonton, Rangers, all in the playoffs. The Ted Lindsey Award is almost the same three names. The interesting thing is now I listed these the way that they're listed by the NHL. And all of them are listed alphabetically except the Lindsey, where Yossi should be first. I understand it's pronounced Yossi as in a Y, but it's still first. It's a J. Matthews and McDavid, the other two. I'm glad Roman Yossi got votes from the players. I'm glad that the players saw what a beast Yossi is. And I honestly think Yossi had a season for the ages. That being said, I think that it's probably McDavid's award for the Lindsey. I get the feeling that it may not be the same player for the Hart and for the Lindsey. Sure, could be Matthews for both, but if it's a split, do we then have a whole other discussion about, yeah, best player, MVP, are they the same thing? And then there's that whole other headache there. But you guys can let me know who you think ends up there. And then I didn't put anybody that I felt got snubbed or anything because this is the players voting on it. So that's their call. I'm totally fine with that. The Norris Award, the three finalists end up being the three that we knew it was. So Hedman, Yossi, and Makar. I don't know how, and so again, I said, if I was starting a team and if it's Huberto or Barkov, I'd take Barkov. Yeah, if I was starting a team and they said, all right, so you can pick Hedman, Yossi, or Makar, I don't know that I could make that pick. I think I'd be basically just, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I don't know that there's really, and again, I know there's models that talk about who's better and you have the WAR ratings and all that. I do pay attention to all that. And that Makar's numbers are ridiculous. And they're ridiculous offensively and defensively. The comments about how he only plays offense, that's absolutely false. That is not true. But Yossi is not all offense. Hedman is not all offense. The amazing thing about this is you've got three defensemen that can put up a point per game or more, and all of them are very solid defensively. Year after year after year, Hedman is in the running for the Norris. And I get the feeling that Makar will be in there every year too. Yossi, we'll see. He had the Norris Trophy won 2 years ago, and then last year he had kind of an up and down year, not in contention. It may be his again this year. Honestly, I would have voted for Makar if it was me. That being said, could it be Yossi? Absolutely. Could it be Hedman? Yeah. And again, it is really tough to say who the best of the three is. Now, it's not a snub not to have Fox on there, but I think it's weird because Fox had a really good year. He won the Norris last year, and he's not one of the top three this year, which is not an indicator that Fox had a bad year. It's just defensemen were ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous this year in the NHL. I've said it before, I'll say it again. More than one trophy for defensemen makes sense. You'd have your best all around, your best defensive defenseman, sort of like the Selke Award, right? You'd have your defensive version of the Selke. But yeah, so you guys can let me know who you think's going to win it. I may throw polls on the channel, and then we'll see who ends up being right on which poll, right? The Vezina was interesting to me because I felt like there were a couple of snubs here. But again, GMs vote on this. So the GMs vote, and it's Markstrom, Saros, and Shesterkin that are the top three. I would have thought Saros would have slipped out of that top three with how the season ends. I honestly didn't think Markstrom had the strongest second half after what was an amazing first half, but the numbers for Markstrom were very good. I'm surprised Anderson didn't make the top three. I mean, Freddie Anderson in Carolina. And I'm not surprised that Sorokin doesn't make the top three, but Elias Sorokin was a wall for the New York Islanders this year. The Islanders didn't get anywhere near the playoffs. Not Sorokin's fault. He was fantastic. And all of the numbers would tell you how good Sorokin is. And again, it's just your basic numbers as well as your advanced stats would tell you he had a very, very good year. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see who wins it and why it's Shesterkin. Because in the end, the top three, I don't think it matters because Shesterkin is going to run away with this. I'd be stunned if anybody else won it. The Calder is one that might throw people off a little bit. Michael Bunting had a very good year. There is no arguing against that. But when you look at Bunting, do you say Calder winner? Well, Bunting, I think, is already the finished product. Usually when you're talking about Calder trophy winners, you're talking about guys who are 20, 21, guys who are, just learning the pros and everything. Bunting is older than the other guys. Easier process. He had a good run with the Arizona Coyotes last year at the end of the year. Definitely had that experience, which I think is an advantage for him. I don't think he wins the Calder because Moritz Seider was good all the way through the season. Trevor Zegras, absolutely ridiculous amount of skill that kid has. A lot of highlight reel goals, highlight reel passes and moves. I think it's between Seider and Zegras. I'm surprised Bunting made the top three, not because he doesn't belong there, but because I thought Raymond would have been in the top 3 with the season that he had. I know he had a rougher second half. That rookie wall is the thing, and a lot of rookies have a hard time once they reach, it's usually about the 55, 60 game mark, that they realize just how long the season is, and I think physically it takes a toll on them. But Tanner Jeannot, I think is going to be the guy that we look back 5 years from now and talk about how he can fight, he can hit, he can score. He's got everything in his game. He's a really good pure power forward. And there isn't really, with Zegras and Bunting being the two guys in that Calder as the finalists, they don't have that. Now, Zegras doesn't need it because he's got all that skill and creativity. But again, Bunting to me is the one that I'm in agreement with him being top 3. I'm fine with that. But again, if you stood them in front of me and said, hey, so you can have one guy for your team going forward, I'm taking Jeannot. I'm taking Raymond. So again, and I've talked about this in a video recently, the way that Calder voting works doesn't necessarily tell you who the best player in that Calder class is, especially because Caulfield's not on the board. And I thought Caulfield had a remarkable run under Marty St. Louis, really turned things around. And so while he's not a top 3 finalist, may not even be top 5 or 6, I think Montreal's got a winner there. So the 5 awards still to be announced. Jack Adams, that's of course Coach of the Year. Usually goes to a coach that ends up getting more out of a team than anybody thought that they would get. I'd be interested to see if Bruce Boudreau ends up in the top 3 because he didn't have the whole season behind the Canucks bench. But they had a remarkable record under him, which was the absolute opposite from before he was hired. The Lady Bing, that's sportsmanship. So I honestly, to me, that's one of the more, it's not random, but sometimes it feels like it is on some level. So just look for a player with very few penalty minutes, usually Jacob Slavin, and see if we get there again. Although I think Slavin had more penalty minutes this year. The Selke, Bergeron's going to end up being the one that people are looking to for that one. He should absolutely be a top 3 finalist. May end up winning it again. I don't know that I necessarily see him winning it, but we'll definitely see how that works out. Masterton and the King Clancy Awards, it's hard to figure out who's gonna get the finalists and the winning spots in those awards too. But hey, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.